Tonight we'll talk about India's biggest security challenge, China. The border situation has been festering. Will Prime Minister Modi's third term see a new approach towards China? Is New Delhi adopting a tougher line? And why do we want to discuss this tonight? Because of a meeting that was held earlier today in Astana. It's the capital of Kazakhstan. They're hosting the SCO summit, that's the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation. India and China are members. Their foreign ministers met today, that's S.Jaishankar and Wang Yi. They discussed the border standoff and agreed to quote-unquote redouble efforts to resolve the crisis. Jaishankar spoke about this last month as well. He said it's a priority for India.
चीन के बारे में हम तो हमारी फोकस तो होगी कि सीमा में जो स्थिति जो है उसमें अभी भी कुछ इश्यूज बाकी बचे हुए हैं तो उसको कैसे निपटाया जाए.
The question is, how will India solve them, these border issues? In today's meeting, Jaishankar adopted a slightly different approach. He calls it the three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. The minister said that these 3 points will guide India's relationship with China. But what does this mean in practical terms? Has the Modi government firmed up its China strategy in its third term? Let's look at some recent events and try to join the dots. First of all, Prime Minister Modi is not attending the SCO summit himself. Chinese President Xi Jinping is there, so is Russian President Vladimir Putin, but the Indian Prime Minister has chosen to skip it and he sent his foreign minister instead. Beijing sees this as a sign. Chinese observers believe that New Delhi has frozen contact at the highest levels because of the border standoff. The negotiations remain stalled. In the last 4 years, the two sides, India and China, have met some 21 times. India has pushed for a complete disengagement of Chinese troops. On 2 separate occasions, Prime Minister Modi has personally conveyed this to Xi Jinping. Last year in Johannesburg, Modi spoke to Xi at the BRICS summit. Reports say they did discuss the border and they agreed to a speedy disengagement. But Beijing did not walk the talk. A similar exchange happened in 2022 as well. At the G20 summit in Bali, Modi and Xi were seen together at the leaders' dinner. Later, India and China confirmed that they talked about the border and agreed to stabilize the line of actual control, LAC. The de facto India-China border. They agreed to stabilize it. So in every meeting, the Chinese leader agrees to pull back troops. But his soldiers remain where they are. And this duplicity has upset India. It has little incentive to bother with engagements at the highest levels, especially at forums like the SCO, where China's influence is evident. New Delhi has demonstrated this displeasure in other areas too, like in the economic relationship with China. A few weeks ago, a story emerged. Beijing had reached out to New Delhi. It wanted India to resume direct passenger flights to China. They were stopped during the pandemic. China wants these direct flights to resume. Over the past year, Beijing has repeatedly raised this request with New Delhi. Chinese airlines too have made an effort. They've made appeals to India's civil aviation authorities, but so far New Delhi has refused. No direct flights between India and China. India has also taken a tougher position on issues that China is sensitive about, like Tibet and Taiwan. Last month, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te congratulated Prime Minister Modi after the election results. And the Prime Minister responded, saying that he looked forward to developing closer ties with Taipei. A few weeks later, India hosted a delegation of American lawmakers. They met the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala. The visit was planned after the US Congress passed the Reform Tibet Act, an act that calls on Beijing to talk to the Tibetans. Prime Minister Modi then hosted this American delegation at his residence as well. Beijing lodged a firm protest against this.
The so-called Tibetan government in exile is an out-and-out separatist and political group. It is an illegal organization that completely violates the constitution and laws of China and is recognized by no country in the world. With regard to the contacts and negotiations between the Chinese government and the 14th Dalai Lama, our policy is consistent and clear. The key is that the 14th Dalai Lama must fundamentally reflect on and thoroughly correct his political views.
China keeps making such statements, but India remains undeterred. Its messaging is quite clear and quite significant. If China ignores India's concerns on the border, India can respond in kind. India can put pressure on China when it comes to Tibet, Taiwan, and the economic relationship. Essentially, here's the takeaway for Beijing. You cannot have a normal relationship with tens of thousands of troops deployed at the border. India's clear weakness here is its trade dependence on China. It cannot be reduced overnight. So the next best option is to stay the course on building pressure, because that's the only language that China understands.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost.